A doctor from Washington who had just retired told his wife he needed to hike alone to think about his new life. He left for Mount Rainier, but never returned, leaving his loving wife to wonder what happened. The case grew cold. Police thought he had either taken his own life or had a terrible accident. But 4 years later, some hikers found something shocking stuck in a beaver dam downstream. It was proof that would show the official story was wrong, and that what his wife felt was true all along. Charlotte's hands shook as she put eggs in the pan. The morning sun came through her kitchen window, showing the shape of Mount Rainier far away. It had been for years since Robert kissed her goodbye that morning, promised he'd be back for dinner, and vanished into the mountains he loved. The eggs cooked, but her thoughts were on the old pain of not knowing. The loud ring of the phone made her jump and drop the spatula. She looked at the caller ID, Mount Rainier National Park. Her heart jumped. They hadn't called in 2 years. Mrs. Charlotte Henley. The ranger's voice was calm but kind. This is Ranger Mike Patterson from Mount Rainier National Park. We need you to come to the station. Some hikers found a backpack in a beaver dam yesterday, and we found out it was his from the number on the GPS tracker. It belongs to your husband, Robert. The words hit her hard. She held onto the counter, her knuckles turning white. A backpack? After all this time? Yes, ma'am. Can you come to the ranger station? We have some questions, and the police are already here. Charlotte's mind raced as she drove the road she knew so well to the ranger station, her hands shaking on the wheel. Every turn brought back memories. This was the road they drove together so many times. Robert always excited for another trip, always promising he'd be safe. She had trusted his experience and his careful ways. He'd hiked these trails for 30 years. The ranger station parking lot had 2 police cars next to the usual parked trucks. Charlotte's stomach felt tight as she walked inside. The smell of pine and old wood brought back more memories. Ranger Patterson, a solid man in his 40s, met her with kind eyes. Mrs. Henley, thank you for coming. This is Detective Morrison from the County Sheriff's Office. Detective Morrison, a tall woman with her graying hair pulled back tight, held out her hand. I'm sorry we're meeting like this. Please, sit down. They took her to a small meeting room. Robert's wet backpack was on the table, stained with mud and partly ripped. Charlotte couldn't breathe. She knew it right away. It was the gray and blue pack she gave him for his 60th birthday, with the red clip he always attached to the side. The hikers found it stuck in a beaver dam about 8 miles down the river from Spray Falls, Ranger Patterson explained. It was partly covered by branches and mud. We were able to find out it was his through the number on the GPS. Detective Morrison opened a folder. Mrs. Henley, we got the memory card from the GPS. The antenna was broken, which is why we couldn't find it during our searches. But the memory card still had information from before it broke. Charlotte leaned closer, feeling both hope and fear. What did it show? The data shows your husband left the path on purpose that day. The last signal was from a spot far from any marked trail, right about here. The detective pointed to a map, her finger on a faraway part of the woods. We searched that exact spot again yesterday and this morning. We found nothing, but Robert never went off trail, Charlotte argued. He was very careful about safety. He filed his hiking plans and stayed on the paths. In 30 years of hiking, he never left his planned route. Detective Morrison's face didn't change. The GPS information is clear. He was miles from where he said he'd be. Because of this and how far out he was, we are looking at 2 things: suicide or an accident. Suicide. Charlotte's voice broke. Robert had just retired. Had plans. A cruise to Alaska, visiting our grandchildren in Oregon. He was excited to have more time with me. I know this is hard, the detective said, her voice a little softer. But after 4 years, with animals and nature breaking things down, there would be very little left. We won't be reopening the case. The search of that area found nothing, and really, there's nothing else we can do. Charlotte felt like the room was shrinking. You're giving up. Just like that. We're not giving up, Mrs. Henley. We're being practical. Your husband went off trail to a dangerous place. If he did it on purpose or by accident, the result is the same. The case will stay closed. Through her tears, Charlotte looked at what was in the backpack with Ranger Patterson. Robert's doctor license was there, bent but still readable. Robert James Henley, M.D. The photo showed his kind eyes and the gentle smile she missed so much. His hiking permit from 4 years ago was faded, but you could still read it. His phone screen was cracked and full of dirty water, totally broken. The strange thing, Ranger Patterson said quietly, looking at the detective who had left to take a call, is where we found this. The Beaver Dam is miles down the river from any marked trail. For the pack to end up there, your husband would have had to be somewhere completely different from his planned route. The way the water flows shows it traveled a long way. Charlotte looked at the ruined things, unable to believe what they suggested. Robert always stuck to his plans. He would check the weather 3 times before a hike. He carried extra batteries and emergency items. He was so careful about safety. It's what made him a great doctor. This doesn't make sense. The Ranger's face was kind. Sometimes even skilled hikers make mistakes, Mrs. Henley. Or sometimes people don't want to be found, but Charlotte knew that wasn't true. Robert would never leave her alone, not after 40 years of marriage, not after they promised to spend their retirement together. He had been so excited, marking off the days on his calendar like a kid before Christmas. When she left the station, holding a bag with copies of the papers and a receipt for the backpack, she felt more lost than ever. The police were keeping the pack as evidence, but she didn't know what it was evidence of. The official decision was clear. Robert had gone off trail and had an accident, or did it on purpose. The case was closed, but it didn't feel like an ending. Charlotte sat in her car for a few minutes, holding the steering wheel tight. The morning had turned from a normal breakfast to a shocking discovery. And she had to tell someone who knew Robert, who knew what kind of man he was. His old co-workers should know about the backpack. The drive to Cascade Medical Associates took her through town, past the coffee shop where Robert got his black coffee and muffin every morning, past the park where they had his retirement party. The memories were everywhere she looked. The office looked different now. The old blue sign was gone, replaced by a modern gray one. She walked into a waiting room she hardly knew. The comfy chairs Robert wanted were gone, replaced by stark white and metal ones. "Can I help you?" The young woman at the desk looked up, not knowing who she was. "I'm Charlotte Henley. My husband, Dr. Robert Henley, used to work here. I need to talk to someone about something new that's happened." The receptionist looked confused. "I'm sorry, I don't know that name. I've only worked here for 18 months. Could I talk to the office manager?" A few minutes later, a busy-looking man in his 30s came out. "Mrs. Henley, now Brandon Chen." The new office manager. "I'm sorry, I didn't know your husband." The office was sold 2 years ago, and most of the workers are new. But Sarah Winters still works here. She was here when Dr. Henley was. Sarah's still here. Charlotte felt a rush of relief. Sarah was Robert's favorite nurse, good at her job, and kind, someone he trusted completely. "She's with a patient, but she'll be free in about 20 minutes. You can wait in the break room. It's more private." The break room, at least, hadn't changed much. Charlotte sat at the same round table where Robert used to eat his lunch. About 20 minutes later, Sarah came in, her face showing worry as soon as she saw Charlotte. "Charlotte, "Oh my goodness, how are you?" Sarah hugged her, then looked at her face. "Is everything okay? You look upset." Charlotte quickly told her everything. The backpack, the GPS information, what the police thought. Sarah listened, looking, more and more worried. They found it in a beaver dam, after all this time. Sarah sat down across from her. "I can't believe it. We still miss him so much here. Well, the ones who are still here. The police think he went off trail on purpose. They're saying it was suicide or he got lost." Charlotte's voice trembled. "But you knew Robert. T would." "Never, ... double quotes, never," Sarah agreed. "Charlotte, your husband loved his work, loved his patients. We were all shocked when he retired because he seemed to love his work so much right to the end. The patients loved him. Mrs. Yamamoto still asks about him." Charlotte leaned forward. "The GPS showed him miles from any trail. The police think that proves he wanted to ... disappear. But Robert was so careful about hiking." Sarah's face changed a little. She looked at the door, then back at Charlotte. "You know, now that you say it, Robert did seem different that last week." "Different how?" "Worried and not paying attention. He kept checking his phone, which wasn't like him. During medical work, he was still totally focused. He'd never risk a patient's health. But between patients, he seemed worried." Charlotte's heart beat faster. "Did he say anything?" "I asked him during lunch on that Wednesday. I remember it because he was sitting right where you are, and his sandwich was not eaten. That wasn't like him." Sarah's voice got lower. "I asked if he was okay, if he was nervous about retiring. He forced a smile and said he had a lot to finish up." "That sounds normal enough." "It wasn't what he said, Charlotte. It was how he said it." His hands were shaking a little when he picked up his coffee. "In 15 years working with him, I'd never seen Robert's hands shake." The room felt smaller. "Is there anything else strange?" That week, Sarah got up, closed the break room door, and sat back down. Her voice was almost a whisper. "This is probably nothing, and I've never told anyone. But Dr. Harrison's behavior that week was odd. Harrison was Robert's boss. Charlotte remembered him as tall and handsome with silver hair. They'd had dinner with him and his wife many times. He wouldn't let anyone help with Robert's patients when he left. Usually, the whole team helps move files and records. But Harrison said he would handle it all himself. Maybe he wanted to make sure the patients were still taken care of. Well?" Sarah shook her head. "That's what I thought too. But, Charlotte, he was here until midnight a few nights that week. I know, because I forgot my keys one night and came back around 11 o'clock. His office light was on, and I could see boxes of files. The strange part is, he took them all home instead of putting them in our file room." Charlotte felt a chill. Robert never said Harrison was acting strangely. That's the thing. Harrison was normal during the day, happy and helpful, and he even threw Robert that nice retirement party. But after hours, Sarah stopped, shaking her head. "I'm probably thinking too much about it. Sadness makes us look for reasons." "You said Harrison took the files home. Did they ever come back?" "I don't know. By the time I thought to ask, the practice had been sold. I heard Harrison made a lot of money from that sale. He opened a new, bigger office across town. He's doing very well." Charlotte remembered Harrison's old office was nice, but not fancy. "Okay, that sounds like a big change. He has people investing. With him now?" There was an article about his new ways of billing and managing his practice. "He's talking at meetings about making the most money from healthcare." Sarah sounded like she didn't like it. It's very different from the Harrison who used to say patients came first. The door opened. "Sarah, your 2 o'clock is here." Sarah squeezed Charlotte's hands. "I'm so sorry about the backpack. If you need anything, please call me." She stopped at the door. "Charlotte, I know the police have their ideas, but I knew Robert. Whatever happened on that mountain, it wasn't because he wanted to leave you. He was always talking about your retirement plans. After Sarah left, Charlotte sat alone, thinking about what she'd learned. Robert was worried. Harrison was working late and taking files home. The big sale of the practice. None of it proved anything, but it was all strange. She thought about the dinners with Harrison, who had said such nice things at Robert's memorial. He had cried with her and promised to help. But now Sarah's words, very unusual for a boss to do the grunt work, stayed with her. What happened in Robert's last week? What made his steady hands shake? Charlotte left the break room and nodded to the front desk person, who was already busy with other people, other lives moving on while hers was stuck. But now, for the first time, she thought the past might hold secrets she never knew about. Charlotte's hands were dirty and her back hurt from leaning over boxes, but she kept looking. The storage unit smelled like mothballs and old paper. After what Sarah had told her, she had to look through Robert's things again. She had kept everything. From his home office, every file, every notebook. She had been too sad to sort through it before, just putting it all in boxes. Now, 4 years later, she had to do it. The first 3 boxes had nothing strange. But in the 4th box, between 2 big medical books, she found it. Robert's planner from his last few months. He always liked to schedule things the old way. With pen and paper, she turned to October, her fingers shaking as she found the week he vanished. Monday, October 12th, staff meeting. Tuesday, October 13th, retirement party. Wednesday, October 14th, Patterson and Associates, 2 p.m. Thursday. October 15th, meeting with Harrison, trail parking lot. 7 a.m., Charlotte stared at the words, shocked. October 15th, the day Robert went missing. He told her he was hiking alone to clear his head. She remembered what he said. Just need a day with the mountain, Charlotte. But here, in his own handwriting, was proof of a meeting with Harrison. At the trail parking lot at 7 a.m., the exact time Robert had left the house. Why did he lie? She looked at Wednesday's note. Patterson and Associates. The name sounded familiar. In the box, she found a folder with October receipts. Inside were 3 receipts from Patterson and Associates, employment law specialists, lawyers who help workers. Robert had never said he had work problems that needed a lawyer. The receipts showed he had met with them on October 7th and 10th, with another meeting set for October 16th, the day after he disappeared. Charlotte called the law office. Patterson and Associates. This is Charlotte Henley. My husband, Robert Henley, was a client 4 years ago. After a moment on hold, a woman's voice said, Mrs. Henley, I see Dr. Robert Henley had meetings with Mr. Patterson in October 4 years ago. How can I help? I'm trying to figure out why my husband needed a lawyer for a work issue. He never said anything. There was a pause. I can't share much because of lawyer-client rules, even after he died. But I can say that Dr. Henley first called about rules to protect people who report wrongdoing at work. Charlotte's mouth felt dry. Whistleblower protections. Yes, he asked how to be protected from someone getting back at him and how to gather proof of problems at work. He had another meeting scheduled for October 16th, but he never came. The woman's voice softened. I remember when we heard he disappeared. Mr. Patterson was very worried. He said Dr. Henley sounded very concerned and kept asking if his family would be safe if he shared information. Safe from what? I'm sorry, I can't say more. But Mrs. Henley, your husband was being very careful. Whatever it was, he wanted to handle it the right way with lawyers. Charlotte hung up, her mind spinning. Whistleblower protection, proof, and a meeting with Harrison the morning he disappeared. A meeting he had hidden from her. She put the important boxes in her car. The drive home felt unreal. As she turned onto her street, she saw a silver Mercedes in her driveway. It was Dr. Harrison's car. Her heart beat faster as she saw Harrison standing by her front door, talking to her neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen saw her and waved. "Charlotte, I was just telling Dr. Harrison you were out." Harrison turned with his usual smile, but Charlotte saw he looked tense. His suit was expensive, but his tie was a little crooked. "Charlotte," he said, walking to her car, "I heard about the backpack. The police called me this morning. I wanted to see how you were doing." Charlotte got out of her car, knowing he could see the boxes in the back seat. "That's kind of you, James." Mrs. Chen, who loved to gossip, added, "I told Dr. Harrison you went to your storage unit." Charlotte saw a strange look in Harrison's eyes when Mrs. Chen said storage unit. His smile wobbled for a second. "Storage unit?" Harrison asked, trying to sound casual. "Just sorting through some of Robert's things," Charlotte said carefully. "The police giving back his backpack made me want to feel close to his memory." Harrison nodded, but his eyes kept looking at her car. "Of course. Find anything interesting? Sometimes going through old things can bring surprises." The question felt like he was asking about something else. "Just memories," Charlotte said. "If you'll excuse me, James, it's been a long day." "Of course," Harrison said, stepping aside. But then he added, "If you need anything, Charlotte, please call. Robert was very important to me. I'd hate for his good name to be dirtied by misunderstandings." The word misunderstandings hung in the air. Charlotte forced a smile, nodded, and went to her door. She could feel Harrison's eyes on her. Once inside, with the door locked, she leaned against it, breathing hard. Harrison showing up so soon felt like too much of a coincidence. His interest in her storage unit, the way his smile had slipped, and his last comment about misunderstandings. She looked through her front window. Harrison was still there, by his car, on his cell phone, waving his hand as he talked. He didn't look like the calm doctor she thought she knew. The planner was in her purse. That one note burned in her mind. Meeting with Harrison, trail parking lot, 7 a.m. What had Robert found out? And why was Harrison so interested in what she might have found? Charlotte had just gotten inside when the doorbell rang. It was Harrison, his face looking gentle and concerned again, but felt that would make him more curious. She opened the door a little. "Charlotte, I'm sorry to bother you again," Harrison said softly. "I was leaving and thought I seemed rude. This news about Robert's backpack has shaken me too. Would you like to get coffee? Sometimes it helps to talk." She felt strongly that it was a bad idea, but she also saw a chance. If Harrison was part of Robert's problem, maybe she could learn something. "I suppose a cup of coffee would be nice," she said carefully. "Great. How about Corner Coffee on Main? I remember Robert said it was your favorite." "That would be fine. I'll meet you there in 15 minutes. I'll drive us," Harrison offered. "No need for two cars." "No, I'll drive myself," Charlotte said firmly. "I have things to do after." A look crossed Harrison's eyes, but he nodded. "Of course, I'll see you there." Charlotte closed the door and texted her sister. "Ellen, meeting Dr. Harrison at Corner Coffee on Main. If you don't hear from me in 2 hours, call police," she added, not joking. Ellen's reply came right away. "What's going on? Are you okay? We'll explain later. Just please watch the time." The drive to the coffee shop was short. Charlotte parked where she could see her car from the window and picked a table in the busy main area, not the quiet corner Harrison pointed to. "You remembered," Charlotte said as Harrison came back with their drinks. A vanilla latte for her, black coffee for him. "Robert talked about you all the time," Harrison said. "He was so devoted to you." The words should have been nice, but they felt like a question to see what she knew. Charlotte sipped her latte and waited. This must be so hard, Harrison went on. Going through Robert's things must be emotional. Did you? Did you find much in storage? Sometimes people keep work. Papers they don't tell their spouses about. There it was. Charlotte kept her face calm. Mostly medical books and thank you cards from patients. How like him, Harrison smiled, but his fingers started tapping the table. No work files. He was always so careful with his papers. I'd think. He kept copies of important things. Just the usual, Charlotte said. Why do you ask? Oh, no reason. It's just that when the police called, they asked if Robert had taken any patient files home. HIPAA rules, you know? I told them Robert would never do that, but I wanted to be sure, for the sake of his good name. Charlotte saw sweat on Harrison's forehead. The police asked about patient files. I'm sure it was just standard questions. Harrison's finger tapping got faster. They also asked about how he was feeling in his final weeks. I told them what I saw, of course. Did you find any of his own writing, like journals? Robert didn't really keep a journal, Charlotte said, watching Harrison's jaw get tight. What about appointment books? He always had that leather planner. Harrison tried to sound casual, but his voice was tense. Charlotte made a choice. Actually, I did find his planner. Harrison's fingers stopped tapping. Oh yes, it was interesting to see his last week. So many appointments. She paused, watching his face. There was a note on October 15th that confused me. October 15th. Harrison's voice was even, but his knuckles were white on his coffee cup. He wrote, meeting with Harrison, trail packing. Lot 7 a.m., but he told me he was hiking alone that morning. The worried look on Harrison's face disappeared, replaced by a look of thinking and fear he was trying to hide. Oh, that, Harrison said with a fake laugh. Poor Robert. He was so mixed up that morning. He actually called me around 6:30, sounding upset. He said he was worried about his mind, that retiring was harder than he thought. I tried to get him not to hike and said we could meet, but he said he needed time alone on the mountain. Charlotte stared at the man she'd known for 15 years, watching him lie so easily. Robert called you? Yes, very early. Patricia can tell you, the phone woke us both. He sounded sick, talking about pressure and things he couldn't deal with. I offered to meet him, but he got almost paranoid and said he needed to think. Harrison leaned in, his voice low. Charlotte, I didn't want to tell you this, but Robert had been showing signs of being depressed for weeks. The change to retirement was very hard for him. Depressed? Charlotte's voice was sharp. Robert was excited about retirement. Sometimes people hide how they really feel, Harrison said smoothly. As a doctor, he would have known how to hide the signs. That confusion about our meeting, writing it down when it was just a phone call, that's common for someone under a lot of stress. But Charlotte knew that wasn't true. She'd seen the planner. Robert's handwriting was strong and clear, not confused. And Robert had never lied to her. If he had talked to Harrison, he would have said something. I should go, Charlotte said, standing up. Harrison stood up too, his cup rattling. Charlotte, wait. If you found anything else, any papers that might be misunderstood, I hope you'll tell me. For Robert's sake, Robert's reputation doesn't need protecting. Charlotte said coldly. Excuse me. She walked out, but she could feel Harrison's eyes on her. In the window's reflection, she saw him standing there, his cup shaking. The man who had spoken at Robert's memorial was gone. In his place was someone she didn't know. Someone whose story about Robert's mind was so clearly a lie. Robert wasn't depressed or confused. He had a meeting with Harrison, and Harrison was desperate to hide it. Charlotte's hands shook as she went into the restroom. The sounds of the coffee shop felt unreal. She locked herself in a stall and pulled out her phone, dialing 911. 911, what's your emergency? Charlotte whispered, "I'm at Corner Coffee on Main Street. I'm with someone who I think might be dangerous. Please send someone." "Ma'am, are you in danger right now?" "I don't know, maybe." "His name is Dr. James Harrison. He's asking questions about my dead husband and acting strangely. I'm scared. We'll send a car to check on you. Can you stay where you are? I have to go back out, or he'll know something's wrong. Please hurry." Charlotte ended the call and tried to calm down. She splashed water on her face and walked back out, trying to look normal. But what she saw made her stomach turn. Harrison had moved to her side of the booth, blocking her way out. "There you are," he said, his smile not real. "I was starting to worry." Charlotte forced herself to slide into the booth. "Sorry, I'm just feeling a bit overwhelmed today. I understand." Harrison's voice had changed. The fake kindness was gone, replaced by something hard. "You know, I drove past your house this morning, very early. Around 6 o'clock, I saw you had boxes out by the street. Spring cleaning in October." Charlotte's mouth was dry. There were no boxes by her street. Don't lie to me, Charlotte." He said sharply, "I saw you loading boxes at the storage unit." Mrs. Chen was very talkative. "I should go," Charlotte said, trying to get past him. Harrison didn't move. "What did you find?" "Nothing. Just memories, like I said." "Robert kept copies of everything, didn't he? Always so careful, so sure he was better than everyone." The last words were a hiss. Charlotte pushed against him. "I need to leave. My sister is waiting for me." For a second, Harrison didn't move. Then he stood up. "Of course, let me walk you to your car." It wasn't a question. Harrison's hand was on her elbow, his grip tight as he led her out. Charlotte looked around the coffee shop, hoping to see someone, but everyone was busy. The October air felt cold. The parking lot was almost empty, her car far away. Now that distance felt huge. Where are they? Harrison's voice had lost its act of being friendly. "Where are what?" His grip got tighter. "The papers, the files, whatever Robert kept. I know he made copies." "I don't know what you're talking about." Harrison spun her around, pushing her against her car. "Don't play dumb with me." Robert was going to ruin everything, thinking he was so much better than everyone. 40 years of building a business, helping people, and he wanted to tear it all down over some numbers. "James, you're hurting me." "Where are the files?" He shook her, his face close to hers. "Did you give them to the police? The FBI? Who else knows?" Charlotte tried to get away, but Harrison was strong. "Let go of me. People saw us leave together. If anything happens to me," that's when she saw the gun. Harrison pulled it from his jacket and pressed it against her ribs. The metal felt cold. "Get in my car." "James, please, get in the car." He pushed her toward his Mercedes, the gun hidden between them. "Move." Charlotte felt weak. "You don't have to do this." "Whatever happened with Robert, shut up." Harrison opened the passenger door. "Get in, or I'll shoot you right here." Charlotte looked around, but no one saw. "Please," she whispered. As Harrison pushed her into the seat, "I have grandchildren. You should have thought of that before you started digging." Harrison slammed the door and got in the driver's side, the gun now pointed at her. Hands where I can see them. Charlotte put her shaking hands on her lap as Harrison started the car. "You should have stayed out of this," he said, his voice strangely calm. "You should have just believed that Robert killed himself like everyone else. For years, Charlotte. For years of peace. And you had to ruin it. You killed him," she whispered. Harrison heard her. "Robert killed himself when he chose to be a hero. Do you know how many people my practice supported? Their families, their kids, school money, their homes. One doctor who acted like he was perfect was going to ruin the lives of many people." Charlotte cried as Harrison drove faster, leaving town and heading toward the country roads that led to Mount Rainier. "He found problems, didn't he?" she said through her tears. In the billing, Harrison laughed a bitter laugh. Problems. Robert couldn't see that sometimes you have to bend the rules to keep a business going. Insurance companies don't pay for real claims, but their bosses get rich. I was just making things fair. By cheating, by surviving. Harrison's hands were tight on the wheel, but St. Robert couldn't see the gray areas. Everything was black and white to him. He was going to report me, destroy everything I'd built. Send me to jail. For what? For making sure my people could feed their families. The trees got thicker as they drove. Charlotte knew this area. It was the road to the Sunrise Visitor Center, the same road Robert would have taken. "Where are you?" "Taking me. Where do you think?" Harrison turned onto a dirt road. "Your husband liked to hike." He thought the mountain helped him think clearly. "Let's see if it helps you think clearly too." They drove for 20 scary minutes in silence. Finally, Harrison stopped in a small open area and turned off the engine. "Get out." Charlotte's legs almost gave out. The forest was quiet and peaceful. It felt wrong that she was about to die in such a beautiful place. "Walk," Harrison said, pointing the gun toward a small trail. "We're going to take a little hike, just like Robert did." "They'll find you," Charlotte said, her voice surprisingly steady. "The police know I was with you. My sister knows." "Your sister knows you had coffee with an old friend. The police will find your car at the coffee shop and think you went." For a walk, sadness does strange things to people. Sometimes they follow the ones they loved. He pushed her onto the trail, the gun in her back. The trees surrounded them, and the light grew dim. "Keep moving," Harrison ordered. "Don't even think about running." Charlotte tripped on a root. They had only gone a short way into the woods when the first siren sounded far away. Harrison stopped, looking around like a scared animal. "No," he mumbled. "No, no." More sirens joined in, getting louder. Charlotte felt a rush of hope, but it vanished when Harrison grabbed her arm. "You called them," he said, not believing it. At the coffee shop, "You called the police." The sirens were very loud now. Through the trees, Charlotte saw flashing red and blue lights. "Damn it." Harrison pulled her in front of him, his arm around her neck and the gun to her head. This wasn't supposed to happen. Car doors slammed. Voices shouted, "Dr. Harrison." A voice called through a megaphone. It was Detective Morrison. "This is the police. We have the area surrounded. Let Mrs. Henley go and come out with your hands up." Harrison moved back, using a big tree for cover, keeping Charlotte in front of him. She could feel him shaking. "Back off," he yelled. "Everyone back off, or I'll kill her. I swear I will." "Dr. Harrison, nobody needs to get hurt, Detective," Morrison's voice said. "Let's talk about this. Let Charlotte go, and we can figure this out." "There's nothing to figure out." Harrison's voice broke. "You don't understand. Robert was going to destroy everything." Charlotte saw police officers taking places behind trees. "Stay back," Harrison yelled, pointing the gun toward them. Then, back at her head, the standoff went on for what felt like hours. Sweat dripped from Harrison's face. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he kept saying. "Robert should have just taken the money. I offered him money. Did you know that? But no, he had to be so noble." "Dr. Harrison," a new, calm voice said. "I'm Officer David Chen, a negotiator. Can we talk? What happened?" Harrison laughed a bitter laugh. "What happened is that one doctor who thought he was so perfect decided he was the judge. 15 years of friendship meant nothing." Harrison's grip changed. The gun moved from her head to wave at the police, and back again. He was becoming wild. He had proof, Harrison went on, almost talking to himself. Copies of everything. Bills, records, bank papers. So careful. He said he was going to the FBI that afternoon if I didn't turn myself in. Officer Chen took a slow step forward. Let's talk about this, doctor. I'm sure theirs don't come any closer. Harrison screamed, full of panic. Chen took another small step. 'Twas too much. Harrison made a noise like a cry and a growl, raised the gun and hit Charlotte hard on the side of the head. Pain shot through her skull, and she saw white lights as she fell. The moment Charlotte fell, Harrison no longer had her to hide behind. He looked at her on the ground, then at the police closing in, and he ran deeper into the forest. He didn't get far. 2 officers tackled him. They went down in a heap, Harrison fighting, but he was no match for them. In seconds, they had him face down, his arms behind his back and in cuffs. Stop resisting, an officer said, but Harrison kept struggling and yelling. You don't understand. Robert destroyed everything. My business, my good name, my life. He destroyed it all with his need to do the right thing. 40 years of work gone because one man couldn't mind his own business. Charlotte held her bleeding head as medics ran to her. She could hear Harrison still shouting as they pulled him up, his expensive suit covered in dirt. He wouldn't listen. Harrison screamed. I begged him, offered him money, but he had to be the hero. Well, where did it get him? The medics were gentle, checking Charlotte's eyes and putting a bandage on the cut. You're going to be okay, one said. Through her pain and tears, Charlotte watched them drag Harrison away. The kind doctor she knew was gone, replaced by this wild stranger. Detective Morrison knelt beside her. You did good, Mrs. Henley. That 911 call saved your life. Charlotte nodded, which hurt. The peaceful trail was now a crime scene, but Charlotte was alive. Unlike Robert, she would leave these woods. The thought brought new tears, but also a dark kind of happiness. Harrison had failed. Justice, after 4 years, was finally here. The bright lights in the police station interview room made Charlotte's headache worse. But she wouldn't go to the hospital until she had told her story. Detective Morrison sat across from her. Take your time, Mrs. Henley, she said kindly. Start where you want. Charlotte started with finding the backpack that morning. Then what Sarah had said, what she found in the storage unit. And finally, Harrison's strange behavior. Her voice shook when she described the gun and the drive, the feeling that she was about to die where Robert had. He kept saying Robert should have taken the money. Charlotte said that Robert was going to destroy everything. Morrison nodded. Dr. Harrison is in another room. Do you want to take a break? No. I need to know what happened to my husband. A detective knocked on the door and whispered something to Morrison. Mrs. Henley, Morrison said, Harrison's story is falling apart. With the planner and your story, well, he's talking a lot. Charlotte's hands balled into fists. What is? He sang. Morrison left and came back 15 minutes later with a serious look. He broke down, she said. He's confessed to Robert's murder. The word murder hit Charlotte hard. Not missing, not suicide, not an accident. Murder. Morrison opened a folder. According to Harrison, he and 2 helpers met Robert at the start of the trail that morning. They told Robert they wanted to talk and work things out. Robert believed them. They walked with him up the trail for about an hour, far from anyone. Charlotte closed her eyes, imagining Robert hiking with those men, probably still hoping to solve things peacefully. They stopped at a place with a view. Morrison went on. Harrison tried one last time to buy Robert's silence. When Robert said no and that he was going to the FBI that afternoon, Harrison says one of his helpers pushed Robert. But since Harrison has been lying so much, we think he either ordered it or did it himself. How? She whispered. It was a 200-foot drop onto rocks. Death would have been instant. He wouldn't have suffered, Mrs. Henley. Charlotte nodded, unable to talk. Morrison gave her a moment. Harrison and his helpers made it look like Robert went off the trail by himself. They broke the GPS and threw the backpack in the river, thinking it would never be found. But why? Charlotte asked. What was worth killing for? Morrison showed her another paper. It gets messy. Harrison admitted to cheating insurance companies for 15 years. He was billing for things that never happened, sometimes on patients who were already dead. The computer files were changed to show fake treatments. Sarah said he took all the files home. Charlotte said slowly, covering his tracks. But that's not all, Morrison said, her face grim. Harrison was also selling human organs, illegally. He was taking black market money for organ transplants, using his real office as a cover. He had a whole network of crime. Charlotte felt sick. The man who had praised Robert's goodness was running a criminal business. Robert found problems in his last weeks, Morrison explained. Harrison got careless, or maybe Robert was just that good at his job. Robert started looking into it, gathering proof. The lawyer, Charlotte said suddenly. He was asking about whistleblower protections. He was building a case. Harrison found out. He tried to buy him off, then threatened him. Robert didn't stop. An officer came in and spoke quietly to Morrison. The detective's face showed both relief and sadness. Mrs. Henley, Morrison said gently. Based on what Harrison said about the exact spot, we sent a helicopter to the cliff area. They found ... They found remains. Charlotte's eyes filled with tears, for years of not knowing. The remains are stuck between rocks in a deep crack. Teams are working too, to bring him home. I have to tell you, after 4 years, we'll need DNA to be sure it's him, and ... much is missing. Charlotte nodded, tears running down her face. But I can bury him. I can give him a real funeral. Yes, Morrison said softly. You can. Charlotte wiped her eyes. What about Harrison's helpers? He's giving up their names to get a better deal. 2 men who worked for him. We're picking them up now. The FBI is getting involved. This is big, Mrs. Henley. Your husband found something much bigger than just one bad doctor. Charlotte thought about Robert's last week, his shaking hands, the secret lawyer visits. He knew Harrison was dangerous, but felt he had to stop him. He knew they might kill him, Charlotte said quietly. That's why he didn't tell me about the meeting. He was protecting me. Your husband was a brave man, Morrison said. He could have taken the money. Instead, he chose to do the right thing. He always did, Charlotte whispered. It's who he was. Later, as Charlotte signed her statement, she thought about the 2 men she'd lost. The husband who died trying to stop a monster, and the friend she thought she knew. Harrison had sat at their table, laughed at Robert's jokes, and acted like a good doctor while running a criminal business. But Robert had seen the truth. And even knowing it could cost him his life, he stood up to the evil. He died on the mountain. He loved, but he died with his honor. Charlotte left the police station as the sun set, painting Mount Rainier with pink and gold light. Somewhere on that mountain, teams were bringing Robert home. The not knowing was over. Her tears were fresh, but with the sadness was pride. Robert had died a hero. He gave his life to stop an evil hiding behind a doctor's mask. She drove home, already planning the funeral Robert deserved, where the truth of his courage would finally be known. Harrison would face the law. His helpers would be caught, their network taken apart. And Robert would finally rest in peace, his last fight won.